Mr. Butler.
Present.
Mr. Coleman. Absent. Mr. Durkin.
Present.
Mr. Hallinan.
Present.
Mr. Holcomb present. Mr. Krennic.
Present.
Mr. McHale.
Present.
Mr. Suma.
Present.
Mr. Morocco.
Present.
Also present are Mr. Marichak, Superintendent, Mrs. Lepotka, the Business Administrator. Absent is Attorney Dempsey, the Solicitor.
One correction, Mr. Holcomb. Mr. Coleman is present by telephone.
He's not going to participate. We just call him.
Thank you, Mr. Holcomb. I'll stand for pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to announce there was an executive session immediately following the work session, June 25th, 2018, for personnel and legal matters. And at this time, Mr. Marichak.
Yes, at this time, we're going to have a special presentation for an honorary diploma. Our high school principal, Mr. Timothy Hopkins, will handle the situation for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Marichak. Sorry for my back. Tonight, we have the honor of acknowledging one of our community's fine residents. Mary Yurchak Molnar, a lifelong Dunmorean, celebrated her 100th birthday on June 1st. Mary attended the Lincoln School on Grove Street and Dunmore High School on Apple Street before leaving school in the 11th grade to take a factory job in the garment industry to help support her mother and her siblings. Mary was married to Emery Molnar, and they had 4 children. Mary was a member of and volunteer for the former Holy Family Church in Scranton and St. Peter's Cathedral in Scranton. She was a member of the Zanata Club, which is an international service organization with the mission of advancing the status of women. It is with great pleasure that I present the most recent graduate of the class of 2018, Mary Yurchak Molnar, with her high school diploma.
Mr. Hopkins, make sure you tell her she keeps that cell phone away when she's in the hall. Thank you. Thank you so much. Congratulations. So I'm not
Is it on television?
No, it'll be on YouTube.
But I just want Holly Mead, 1709 Quincy Avenue. I just wanted to say our son was a senior, he graduated, and I wanted to compliment the board, especially the guidance counselors, I know, and the administration. I know they put a lot of time into the graduation ceremony. It was so nice, so professional. We were super impressed. It was fabulous. And I would also like to thank the guidance counselor. My daughter was really struggling to get some of the courses that she wanted for the fall. She's a junior going to be a senior, and they actually called her in the week after school was out in the summer to help her. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Gardier, and I live at 1713 Electric Street in Dunmore, and I have a shared driveway with 1711 Electric Street. And our properties butt up to the back of the Little League. And at one time there was a garage on 1711, and my fence butted up to it, so there wasn't any problem. However, the garage was torn down, and now it looks like a road, it looks like an access to Dunmore High School. And there's been a problem with the students using it at cutting through, and it's large amounts of students, 80 to 100 in the morning and at the end of school and different times during the school. And I did address the problem with the principal and the superintendent. They were very respectful and helpful, and they addressed the problem with the students. And I did notice a decrease in the traffic. However, it has not stopped. To me, it's a very stressful issue. It's safety. If someone is hurt on my property, it's a liability issue. They go through smoking, and they put their cigarette butts out. There's lots of trash with food, papers, cigarettes, loud music. I've had things stolen from my tenant's first floor apartment. She had her rug stolen. I've had things stolen from the side of my house. So I just wanted to bring it to notice to the school board. I don't know if there's anything that you can do to help me out, but I would appreciate the continued support of the school and of the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gardner, we will continue to try to have a police officer or an administrator, but for a couple of days the kids will stop, and we're just going to stay diligent, keep making our announcements, and we don't want them on your property, as you know. We understand. We're going to keep working with you.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Castellano. I live at 510 Boyle Street in Dunmore. I'm coming to you today because there was a very serious issue that happened with my daughter, Madison. Madison has gone through Dunmore since kindergarten, and she's active with football, cheer, and I don't know if you come to the games, but she's the little one that plays the huge drum, the bass drum. She's a proud member of the marching band as well as the drama club. Last year on September 28th, she was in art class and a girl fell off her stool and the class was laughing. Madison put her head down so that this student wouldn't notice her laughing because she kind of felt bad for her. And the student went to leave the classroom, and when she came back in, she said, no. And she singled my daughter out for what we will never know. They've never had any interaction in the past. And she clapped her hands in her face, and she said, you want to fight? You want to fight? And Madison said no. She's all of 4'11". And so the girl then pressed her body up to my daughter's, and my daughter looked at her and pushed her away. And then this student kicked my daughter's stool out from underneath her, but she's short, so she was actually standing already. So she had learned in a self-defense class that you're supposed to put one hand in front of your face and the other hand out to keep them away. But because Madison is 4'11", it wasn't possible because this student was much taller than she. The girl then proceeded to punch my daughter in the face. She had and she scratched the left side of her face, and then she grabbed her by the ponytail and she began beating her in the head, and it was over and over and over, and she got her ponytail and she was dragging her by the ponytail to the other end of the classroom, presumably to bang her head against the wall, to smash her head into the wall. And my daughter has never fought. I actually have another teenage daughter in the house, and they fight. They've never gotten physical. Madison then found a desk that she could hold on to, and she held on to that desk, and she put her head down, and she said that she just started praying that this girl would get tired and walk away. It didn't happen for a long time. When it was a substitute teacher in the class that day, and she just kept yelling, "Girls, go back to your seats, go back to your seats." A young man named Kyle Harity went running to look for someone.
Ma'am, please don't mention any other students' names.
You know what, I didn't mean to, okay. But this boy went running to find Mr. Hopkins. He couldn't find her, apparently he was in the cafeteria at that time. Mrs. Hart, the resource officer, the hall monitor, the nurse, no one was there to stop it. And as a result of that, she came out of school. The concussion specialist wrote her out until December, and then she began to go to cyber school. She had to go to physical therapy because her eyeballs wiggled in her head, they said, when these blows were taking place. And we had to take her to the eye doctor and the concussion specialist and a trauma therapist, and also an ear, nose, and throat specialist, because apparently where she punched her in the cheek is where one of your sinuses is. The reason why I'm here, and Madison was also cited, although Officer Springer did not conduct a full investigation because he never spoke to my daughter. And I have the original citation here. It was illegible. I had to call the secretary to find out what it said. But I do have it here if you wanted to see it. And also, she was supposed to do 9 hours of community service, which I had her do. And they said that the 9-day suspension was, that's what you do for a fight. This was not a fight. This was an assault. This was an attack. And there's nothing to argue about there. Nothing. It was not a fight. Madison did not hit back. She didn't know how. She couldn't have. Also because she had just gotten a cast off her left hand, and she's a lefty. I did take pictures of her hands to show there's no marks on her knuckles or anything like that. I have pictures of her injuries thereafter. The reason why I'm here is to find out what is the protocol for violence in the classroom. And are the substitute teachers that come in here, are they given, or any school really, are they given a copy of what the protocol is? I think we always talk about violence coming in, but I think that we have to consider the possibility of something like this happening to someone else again, or worse. Madison should have been taken in an ambulance. She could have had a broken neck, brain bleed. She should not have been moved. She had to walk down 2 or 3 flights of steps. And the other question that I have are, what measures are in place to ensure my daughter's safety? Because I called and I spoke to the guidance counselor. Madison would very much like to come back for her senior year. And I spoke to the guidance counselor and I said, well, Madison and this other student will not be in the same class, correct? And she said, well, I'll do my best. Well, that's not good enough. The best isn't good enough. She said they're going to be in lunch together. I can kind of understand that. But she said they're going to be in gym together. And when I hear gym, I hear unsupervised locker room. because my other daughter had her picture taken while she was changing last year, and it was posted on Instagram. And that's why everybody has to keep their cell phones in their lockers, because my 14-year-old was photographed in her panties and underwear, and it was posted. And I continually asked that that teacher be at least at the door, and the administration agreed with me, and I asked the superintendent, and she was told again and again and again, and she was never in there. So it's an unsupervised environment. I am very fearful that this could escalate in some way. And this girl has approached Madison regardless of what the magistrate told her to do. She has been approached 3 times since then. So those are my questions.
Did you say this happened September 28th?
2017. Why am I coming now?
No.
Okay.
No, I wasn't going to say that. I was not aware, and I never heard a thing about this issue. I don't know if anyone else on the board has heard about it, but
I wanted to ask the same question. This is the first I'm hearing. I'm surprised.
We're at the start of another school year. That's why and Madison is considering coming back, so I have to ask.
we try and we should provide a safe environment for every student. Not only your child, but every student that comes into this building should feel safe and comfortable. And I'm sure with Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Marichak, we can make sure that it's a safe environment for all students. We do the best we can, believe me. And this, again, I said, I never heard anything of this from the administration.
But with all due respect, when we spoke with Mr. Hopkins, and I've spoken with him since, out of necessity. Now, he's always been respectful of me. However, every time he tells me how he's never had a problem with this other girl. She never got so much as a detention. This is what he tells me. My daughter's gotten detentions because my daughter's late. She's bad at late. And, it's just not something that you want to go through or anything that you need to hear when you're dealing with all this at once. It was very hard for Madison. You still can't approach her from the back. I have to ask permission from my daughter to stroke her hair. She has to stand, far away from you. And she was actually cast in the Little Mermaid play, and she had 4 parts. And it was 2 days before the performance, and she got what she calls a concussion headache. And then it turned into anxiety because here she is in the building. It was hard for her to be in this building, but I wanted her to stay involved here, and I wanted her to keep herself busy so that she wasn't going to slip into a depression, and so she went here. And because she left early, 2 days before the play, they took all of her costumes away, and she was asked to play a maid, which doesn't even merit a bow in the finale. So after 3 months of Sunday to Thursday practices, that was it for the play. So.
Well, I don't think that a discipline matter could be spoken about publicly. The police were involved, the magistrate, and they had a finding in this, and they did do a thorough investigation.
No, they did not. They did not talk to my daughter.
That's your opinion. We're sorry that you're
No, there's fact and there's opinion.
Okay.
No one spoke to my daughter.
Okay.
That's a fact,
Police did an
Mr.
investigation,
Marichak.
and the magistrate handled this subject. We had many fights, unfortunately.
This was not a fight, it was an assault.
No, that's not the way it was seen by the police and the magistrate.
And how would you know that, Mr. Marichak? Did you speak to anyone? Because you didn't speak to me, and you didn't speak to my daughter, and you didn't speak to her doctors.
The high school administrator took care of that.
In what way?
He handled it as you would.
The high school administrator?
Yes, Mr. Hopkins.
Mr. Hopkins. Yes, Mr. Hopkins was aware of the situation. Here's what happened. My daughter got a 9-day suspension and a citation.
And that's what all children get for fighting.
It was not a fight, it was an assault.
That's your opinion.
No, it is not. As I said, you haven't spoken to me, you haven't spoken to her doctors.
Spoke to our school resource officer and the
The
magistrate.
school resource officer was on his lunch break, and he also never spoke to my daughter, ever. So how is that a full investigation? Am I right? How is it a full investigation if you don't talk to a party in the investigation? Oh, I'm sure I've been over 5 minutes. I've not ever been to a board meeting before. This is important to me, to Madison, and to my family. And we live in this community. And you know what? We went and we talked to Shane Scanlon, and we sat in his office. And you know what he said? Dunmore takes care of Dunmore. They sweep everything under the rug. And I never believed that about this community.
There's
But
nothing
this
swept under the
has
rug. The
been
police
awful.
and the magistrate handled this situation, and
Okay, that's your opinion, Mr. Marichak.
yours is yours as well.
John, if I could, for one, I'd like to see a copy of that police report. Hold on. I'll get a copy of that.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
We'll take a look at it. We'll look at it.
It's, as I said, it's illegible.
Where was this substance?
He also, on the citation, marked my daughter as African American. Just written, my point is, very fast.
Well, let's take a look at it.
Hmm?
I know you're upset.
No, I want to read something that's
Okay.
legible. When you said that's not legible, it's no need for you to give me that, but I would like to, whether it's question officer Springer or see a copy of the report. I would like to see it. I don't know about the rest of you.
We'd like to see it back.
Of a report, I don't have a report, I have a citation.
Is that common, John, a citation for a flight in school or something like that? That's something.
Yes, come right. Let's do what we tell you is, let's take a look at it and then get back to you. If you have any other questions, you can call your board members or Mr. Conley. But again, if you're doing that, I'm sorry to be involved.
This is the
Okay.
first we're hearing of it.
Right, so I mean.
I understand that, but I'm asking you what the protocol is. And if the substitutes know the protocol, all she had to do was pick up a phone and she would have gotten the office. So what is the protocol for safety in the classroom? That's what I'm asking. You don't
Trust
know.
Mr. Hopkins. Mr. Hopkins does a fine job, but as far as running the building goes, I know there's some things that we're limited at, that he could probably use a little more help. You know, I have complete faith in Mr. Hopkins.
But Mr. Hopkins can be in every
I
classroom.
know, I understand that. You're 100% correct.
So regarding substitute teachers, you know, I never would have thought about it if this didn't happen. You know, if there's protocol in place, I mean, maybe she should know. I am very sure that this will not be the last incident that happens in a classroom, because you're dealing with kids. You know, fights happen. This is not a fight. And I think that there needs to be, just as there are measures for violence coming in, there needs to be a protocol for people going out, you know, for who's already in here. So those were my only questions, and just to know, I guess, is it possible for her to not be in class with this girl? I know you can't answer that, but I mean, at some point, if I know she's in with that girl, I'm just very nervous that it would escalate. I really am. I'm nervous for her safety.
Butler said, supported always concerned is the health and welfare of all the children in the school.
Mhm.
So we, I for one, I'm sure all the women support taking serious.
Okay.
I also feel that Mr. Allen's principal, I just say Mr. Martin, Mr. Marichak, they feel the same way we do. Kids safety, very, very imperative.
I know Mrs. Hart told me that she heard Madison screaming from 2 floors down, and that's why she went up.
I'm saying, we do care.
Oh, I know. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be sitting here.
We do care.
Mhm.
It's very unfortunate what happened.
understand. I would question where you would get your information from. I wasn't aware that there was a police report. I'm going to pick one on myself. So Mr. Hopkins, I know, picked random kids from the classroom to write statements. I actually had my daughter writing a statement when we got there to pick her up and take her to the hospital. And a few of the kids, I think the majority of them did say that. The majority of them did say that Madison slapped Tanisha, but I think it was, I don't know what it was, but the majority of the kids did say that. I don't know if it was when Madison got up, I don't know. So, that's all.
That's the only thing we tell you. Give the information that we have.
Okay.
We appreciate your comment, expression of concern. I just want to say, President, I know our administration. Safety first, right?
Well, it might be worse.
Everybody else.
And it might be worth, putting together a plan of action for inside the classroom. I mean, that could be worse. That could be worth it.
That's always the possibility. Again,
Okay.
take care of our kids.
Okay.
We're very sorry that happened.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else in public discussion? Motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting on May 16, 2018.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Suma. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion, please.
Chairman.
Mr. Allen.
That permission be granted the following for the use of district facilities and equipment. The use of district facilities is subject to the conditions established by the Dunmore School District and may not conflict with any regular scheduled activity.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McHale. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion to accept the personnel reports.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Holt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion, Mr. Durkin.
Motion to appoint Janet Lucas, elementary teacher. Terms are defined in the agreement with the Dunmore Federation of Teachers. This position is effective August 27, 2018.
Motion by Mr. Durkin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion, please.
Chairman, McHale, to appoint Carol Barasco to part-time aide for summer off-campus program. Terms are defined in the agreement with the Dunmore Education